Hi, welcome to Wrokdown. I'm Wendy Stapleton. Well, truly one of the finest musicians to ever grace our shores. Musician, composer, singer, and a star in his own right. He's played with John Farnham, Olivia Newton-John, but we're here to find out much, much more today. Would you please welcome Mr. Joe Creighton?
Hi Wendy, thank you for that welcome. I've actually got a bit red in the cheeks from it.
Have you blushed?
Started to blush a little.
But it's true, you are truly one of the finest musicians. And the reason I said to grace our shores and stayed was because, of course, you were born
I'm a foreigner.
Still? After how many years?
I came in 1967.
I think...
The first time I came.
Yep.
With my parents.
So tell us about your life. You were born in Belfast?
Yes, I was born in Belfast and I grew up in a little town just outside of Belfast called Bangor, about 13 miles from Belfast. And it's sort of a seaside community, so it's actually a very nice place to grow up.
What was it like though? I read that was it Sandy
Road? That's where I was born, the Sandy Road.
That sounded interesting. Was that in Belfast?
That's in the heart of Loyalist Ulster, you could say.
Can you explain what that is, like Loyalist?
Loyalist Ulster in Northern Ireland, at that time, it's changed now, but Northern Ireland used to be 75% Protestant and 25% Catholic.
Which bit did you fit into?
I grew up in the Protestant side of things, you know, although my birth father actually is a Catholic from Dublin, so I actually run with the blood of both in my veins. But I grew up in a street called Sandy Road, which is right, the Sandy Road, Shankill Hill Road, you know, and those are the
heart of the whole...
fierce, you know, sort of loyal to the Queen.
How difficult was it living in Belfast to access, say, all of the music that was coming, say, at that time into the UK from America?
Very easy. It was Belfast was a very rich place to grow up in for music, because there were a lot of great bands. Of course, you know, I was a big fan of Morrison and them,
yes,
and
yeah.
we used to always go down from Bangor down to Belfast and watch them perform, and sometimes, you know, them would come and play in our local kind of gigs as well.
Tell us about your early days in bands before you came out to Australia.
Well, I played in the band The A-Side. We played with actually quite a lot of famous bands. We, you know, supported the Trogs and Dave Deep, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Titch and things. So we were actually sort of quite up and coming, never to the point of a record deal or anything like that. And then I left shortly afterwards to come to Australia. And Sydney in '67, now don't get me wrong, I love Australia. It's my home and I love it. But in '67, it was a scary place because it was so culturally different to what I'd come from. And
detached still.
Yeah.
Because of that great,
yes, indeed.
You know, I think here we used to wait for a year.
That's right.
To listen to stuff that had already been played all over the world.
That's right.
And we were a year behind.
That's right. Well, a lot of the music was extremely pop based too,
mm-hmm.
which I was so anti-pop music as far as, you know, all the sort of fluffy pop was, but that seemed to be the only thing that was happening, as far as I could see. I know now actually there was a lot of other stuff going on, but it wasn't.
It was underneath.
Yes, it was very much underground. I remember walking down George Street. Two things that struck me actually was men walking, you know, with a Kubra hat, the short pants and the long socks, and I'm just like, wow, I've never seen anybody look like that.
That only happens in Sydney.
Well, it must.
I'm only joking. I'm only joking, just to get a little bit of the old rivalry going in.
But Sydney was very much, and then I remember going into, I think it was the Tattersalls Hotel in George Street, and having a beer, and it nearly went through my roof. I couldn't believe how cold it was. You know, chilled glasses and chilled beer.
Icing
of course,
drinks.
I was thirsty, and I've gone, wow, you know, I got the brain freeze and me, and I'm like, I'd never had a beer that cold, you know, before. So it was culture shock.
And so, did you have siblings?
No, I'm an only child.
Okay, so when you arrived, what did you do?
Well, I got a job because my father had taken me out of school because I was spending too much time with, as he thought, the wrong type of people playing music. And I went to grammar school and didn't, you know, I failed in my last year.
Didn't do your grammar.
I didn't do it properly, you know, and it was a kind of a poshy school too, you know, so I won a scholarship to it, and I had done quite well up to this certain point, and then I started to, you know, not be interested in it.
So where did you find the wrong people to hang out with?
At
the grammar school. I was just thinking that. Where do you find the wrong people to hang out with at grammar school?
Well, when he says they were, it was just that we were all growing our hair long.
I know what you're saying.
And we're all, they're all middle class. We're all middle class kids, mostly, and it was just, but we looked a bit different. But where was I?
Your father made you get a job.
I had to get a job. I had actually gotten a job in a business that he was involved in Northern Ireland before we left. And he was trying to groom me in trainee management, which was, of course, all wrong, It was just, I'm so not management material,
Here I am nodding, yeah.
And anyway, so I came here and I just got a job. And then I started applying to try and get some bands. I started just playing with some local bands. And finally I hooked up with a band called Melissa in Sydney, who were actually up and coming, quite well known. And they played sort of kind of prog rock. And I introduced them to Van Morrison, and I wrote a few songs with them and stuff, and we did an album called Midnight Trampoline. And apparently it's gotten, there's a lot of young guys who are doing prog rock that really know the band Melissa.
Is that right?
Yeah. And I was at a party with, Stuart Fraser?
Yes, I do. I know Stuart.
And Stuart says, I bet you, and he was talking about his brothers, 2 sons, they're right into all this prog rock and everything. He said, I bet you they know the band you were in. I said, no way. He called them over to them. He said, what's the band you're in, Joe? Melissa. Oh, yeah. And they could tell me the songs on the album. Then I went travelling for a long time.
Tell us about that.
I went back to London and stayed there for a while. I didn't play music much in London. Then I went to... I got involved with the Guru, and I had to go to India.
Guru Maharaji.
Yeah, I had to go to India.
Can you just tell us a little bit about that? When you left Australia to go back to London...
Yeah, that's when I got involved with it.
In your heart of hearts, really... You're sort of going back
I
to
was
see...
going home, man.
You were going home, I wanted to ask that. You'd had enough of here.
Mind you, travelling in the back of a transit van up and down the west coast of Ireland in freezing cold and slithering all over icy roads, I started to think, maybe Australia's not that bad a place after all, Well, anyway, so getting back to London, I went to go to his ashram in India, and the Indo-Pakistan War broke out, so I was stuck in Kabul.
Oh, lovely.
So we stayed there for a couple of months, and we couldn't, and I didn't want to go back to London again because we were running out of money. And someone said, look, why don't you go to Japan? You can make money playing music and teaching English and stuff like that. It's a good thing to do. So we went up into Russia and across Siberia and landed in Yokohama.
That was your only way out?
Yep. And landed in Yokohama with $100 and just started to make a life there. Stayed there for about 2 years.
2 years? That's a very long time.
Yeah. And we used to just drive into Tokyo a couple of times a week and do jingles, and I would sing jingles in Japanese. So it was a bit of a quirky thing.
Fantastic.
Milk ads and things like that.
2 years in Japan. We'll take a short break. When we come back, did you come back to Australia after that?
Yes.
When we come back, we'll talk about coming back to Australia.
Wrokdown.
Welcome back to Wrokdown. My guest is Joe Creighton, and we're just returning from Japan.
That's right. Back to Australia.
Back to Australia. In 1971,
I think. Yeah. So 71 I came back to Australia, and I hooked up, through the Maharaji connection, with Lindsay Field and Trevor Wilson, rest in peace, who was the bass player with the La-Di-Das, one of the founder members.
And Lindsay Field, of course, has been...
And Glenn Mason also. Also involved in that. Glenn had a band in Sydney at that time called Home, which Trevor was also in. And we were sort of doing music with what we call it, the sect or the cult. I'm not involved in it anymore, so I can say anything I like, really, without being... So we came down to Melbourne, and I remember Trevor saying, okay, we'd driven all night, and we arrived, I think, Saturday afternoon or something like that, and Trevor said, we've got to go straight to the station hotel because Daddy Cool are playing there. You guys have got to see Daddy Cool. So we arrived from our drive into Hume House, and in those days it took a boom, bang, bang.
Yeah.
We've got all our PA in the back, we have mattresses, we're all like sleeping in the back.
You have to stop and gun the guy, you have to stop him.
It just took forever. So anyway, but I don't even know what time, probably was like a 2-day trip really in the old Bedford truck.
It would be.
And we arrived in the afternoon at the station hotel to see the last set of Daddy Cool. And we've got we parked the truck just up the street from the station. We all piled out. I think there was about 5 of us or something like that in the truck. We all piled out, went into the station. And of course, the station, you could cut the smoke in, the air. It was just like,
the good old days.
The old good old, and there's Hannaford up on the table,
This is Ross Hannaford,
Hannaford doing his thing, and it was so exciting. It was just such a vibe, you know what I mean? And that was just very exciting, and it was our welcome to Melbourne. So then, we I think we got a gig. We talked to Mark Barnes and got a gig next week at the station, and we started playing in there a little bit.
And later on, you hooked up with Ross.
Hannaford joined us. That's right.
In Billy T.
Well,
was that later?
That came a little bit after.
Okay,
what happened was after that, I went and lived in Coolangatta for because a friend of mine had a gig at the Cabbage Patch, and he said, "Why don't we need a guitar player?" I said, "Why don't I get Hannah to come up?" He said, "Hey, would he come up?" I said, "Sure." I said, "Isn't Daddy Cooler not happening? They've kind of split up, and he's just walking around. He's doing his art mostly, and he could do that up here." So I called Hannah, and I said, "You want to come up and just do a summer season?" He said, "Yeah, that'd be great." So we come up, and just the three of us, we played a 3-piece. We played about 4 nights a week at the Cabbage Patch, and we just lived up there in 8 Mangoes, So we had a great time. I think we lived up there for a year, and then Ross and I started writing songs together, and then we had the idea of creating a band and coming down to Melbourne, and we did that. We wrote quite a few songs, and Hannah came up with the name Billy T, which was, and he had, he did his artwork for it, which we used to call it the flying porridge, it was like the writing with the bits flying off it, it was great, it was a great symbol, and there's still some of the t-shirts around, the collector's items.
Are they?
But we came down and we auditioned a lot of musicians, and, Russell Smith, he had a bit of connection with from Mighty Kong, and of course Company Kane, and so we formed Billy T, and then with Billy T, we did a Little Feat tour that absolutely put us on the map, because that was our audience.
Yes.
People that liked Little Feat just loved Billy T.
Yeah.
And immediately we were just packing out every venue, Tiger Room, Martinis, all the haunts around Melbourne. We were packing them out, and we got a record deal.
Who did you sign with?
CBS.
And how did the deal go?
It went sour because Ross and I kind of a few times ran off to America to see and play with Miraji, and the band got really pissed off about that. And I can't remember if we just fell apart. I actually think they sacked us. We were the founder members. And
yeah,
we got sacked,
they sacked you? Yeah,
and they did a few gigs on their own, but it wasn't able to sustain
without you and
no,
Hannah. Yeah.
No. So it sort of it drifted apart, and about that time, I was sitting in my flat and I got a knock on the door, and there's this really tall guy all dressed in black, He says, "Joe, I'm Mark Gillespie." I said, "Oh, hi Mark, I've heard about you, come in, And he said to me, and this was a real turning point in my career, he said, "I want you to be my bass player in my band and come and do a record with me." I said, "Well, why don't you I'm a singer. Because I've always been a singer. I picked up the bass, even though I made a reputation for being a bass player. I was a singer, initially, and I always thought of bass as a secondary thing. And I said, "Why don't you get one of the real bass players at the time, like Kelly, Mike Clark, or Big Goose, Barry Sullivan, or one of those guys?" I said, "They actually specialize in bass. I'm a singer, And I couldn't get this concept because I thought of myself as a singer-songwriter that happens to play bass. And I said, well, do you want me to sing some of my songs? And he said, no. I just want you to play my songs. And this was like a weird concept.
You sort of underestimated yourself, because we all thought of you as obviously a singer, but one of the hottest bass players around.
But see,
you didn't know.
No, I didn't. I was very underconfident, I must be honest, as a bass player. I remember one time playing with Billy T at remember the swap? The Bondi Lifesaver.
Oh,
yes. Called the wife swap.
Yes. Yeah.
But I was at the Bondi Lifesaver, and Harry Bruce, Tim Partridge, Barry Sullivan. I counted 11 bass players that I just thought were, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to die a death here. They're going to see through me what a fraud I actually am. You know what I mean? And one by one they all come up and said to me, "Really love you playing, mate." And I was like, "Oh, they're just being nice, because I really was so underconfident as a bass player, But to get back to Mark Gillespie saying, that was the first time I was employed as a session musician, if you understand.
Yes, I do.
It was the first time that I actually played bass for someone else. And we went on and we did that. I did some gigs around with them, and Ross came in and played. Then we went up to the Music Farm and did the Only Human album. After Mark Gillespie, I played with quite a few. I'm trying to think the chain of command. I played with Tim Finn on the Escapade tour. So I played with Black Sorrows before that. for a little while in the early inception, which is my first main link with Joe. I'd done some sessions for him, but then that was the first time I think I played on the second couple of albums before Vic and Linda came in.
Yep.
And the original sound which made him want to have girls in the band was Shirley Matthews, Vanetta and myself, even though I wasn't a girl. I used to sing the middle part with those guys. And Shirley Matthews, Vanetta Fields
Steely Dan.
and Clyde King did all the sessions in LA through the 70s into the 80s. Bob Dylan, Stars Born, Barbra Streisand, all that stuff. Steely Dan, as you said.
Yeah. Amazing.
So
and so they're in a band. You're in a band with them.
All of a sudden, I'm just like, I've died and gone to heaven, and it's really funny because they used to knock me around a little bit because they were very experienced. So I've got Shirley on this side of me. Shirley would sing the low part, I would sing the middle part, then I would sing the high part, and they would have this sign language. Sometimes, they go, up a third. And I'd be like, oh Christ, next thing, whack, back in my head. So I very quickly learned to, and we carved it up. We got with so many sessions.
You very quickly learnt what a smack in the head meant.
Yes, I did. It was like sing.
You didn't
full.
go up the third.
It was like sing full.
I can hear Vanetta doing it. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. So and that. Out of that came, one time with our band, we were playing at the Troubadour in Brunswick Street, and John Farnham came. And he was very moved by the band. He asked if we would come and do support for him. And we couldn't, because we were doing a lot of gigs around town. And then, so he said, okay, if you can't do that. And then he later came and said, well, Vanetta, could you come and do a tour with me at least? And, you can sing a couple of leads as well from your stuff. So she did that. And then a year later, he asked me to come in.
On the back of that, or I don't know whether I'm correct, on the back of that you actually toured with Olivia Newton-John, is that right?
Yeah, well, what happened one time, we were doing the main event with
Anthony Warlow,
and Olivia hadn't been doing any gigs for quite a while, and she really wanted to start doing it again. I don't know why.
So the main event was John, Olivia, Anthony Warlow, and
and an orchestra and the band. There was two bands, an orchestra and then us.
So full orchestra, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a huge thing. And she was talking to John. She said, you're so lucky you've got this great band. They seem to be so supportive of you. And just at any point, you seem to be able to just really relax and enjoy what it is that they... And he said, yeah. And she said, I wish I had a band like that. And he just said, why don't you use them? Because I don't use them all the time. And she said, could I? So we went and did a tour with her. Our first tour.
I heard that was amazing in America.
We didn't even realise how big she was, because it's like we'd be playing all these casinos, and you'd come outside the stage. Let's go back to our rooms or down the bar and have a bit of a drink. Next thing would be literally mobbed. It was like, my God, it's like.
I'm not Olivia. I'm Joe.
We just didn't expect it. We just didn't expect it.
You just have to stop putting your clothes on after the show.
Oh dear.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I also want to ask you all of your stuff, because you've written many albums, and you have a fantastic career going in your own right. But just when we come back, just a quick little snippet with doing the Kylie tour and a couple of other ones. We'll be back very soon with Joe Creighton.
Wrokdown.
If you love the songs played here on Wrokdown Radio, we've been working on a new idea to help all these bands. We've got a net radio show, and all these songs are now available to you. You can find the links at wrokdown.com or just Google Wrokdown on Toot. Wrokdown, helping our Australian musicians.
Welcome back. My guest is Joe Creighton, and we're just in America at this stage in the interview with Olivia Newton-John.
Yeah.
And you were just saying that you had, or the band actually had no idea how big Olivia was.
She was, yeah. It was really amazing, and I mean, when we travelled around America, especially in that last big tour we did, I can't remember what year it was now, but there were people who followed the whole tour. You'd see the same people in the audience. They'd come from Europe, and they booked the whole tour right through. There was, you know.
Did they spook you out a bit?
I did, yeah. I kind of thought, man, that's almost
It's-
you know,
I know,
like stalking, you
it's a
know?
bit- I mean, it's beautiful.
It's
It's actually
incredible, yeah.
beautiful that people love it so
It
much.
is,
But
it is.
on another
But you
CD.
kind of think, watching it alive. No, I shouldn't say. Without those people, we wouldn't have a business.
None of
So
us.
it's
None of
great.
us would have
It
a
was
gig.
great that,
None of
you
us
know,
would have a gig.
It's really great.
So you're going from one gorgeous girl to another gorgeous girl.
Oh yes, I know who you're going to say. Kylie, yeah.
Kylie.
I love working
How
with
did you end
Kylie.
up working on Kylie's tour?
Now, how did that happen? We went to the Dili trip, the Tour of Duty, with Doc Neeson organised to play for the troops.
I
up
remember.
in,
Yes, I
yeah.
remember that. Yeah.
And that was a pretty graphic, intense time to see all those things that happened there. But Kylie came on that trip, and we played with her.
So who did you go there with? Farnham.
Farnham and Kylie. We were sort of a band that played with a few people.
Yeah.
I think Gina, the country singer, excuse me.
Jeffries?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Gina Jeffries went. And yeah, it was a big show just to
help
play for the troops, you know, boost the morale of the troops. It was playing to a lot of people. I mean, I think we must have played about 5,000 troops.
Wow.
You know, but the things we saw there were pretty graphic.
Horrendous.
And the stories here, it was just like, it was a real eye-opener, just being straight into that, you know. But anyway, so we worked with Kylie, and then we did, I can't remember if it was just before or just after, we did a tour in, I think it was before it actually, I should say. We went to London with her and did a few dates there, and then we did a little bit of a tour in Australia. It was, there's a live DVD, and I'm trying to remember the name, but it's a great DVD. But it was basically the Farnham band with a few guys from England that came in. Chong Lim was the MD.
Yeah. Did Linz go?
No, Linz didn't go because she had her own backing vocals.
Oh, okay.
Vocals that she wanted
Right,
to
yeah.
use. It was really good fun to do. I really enjoyed working with
Yeah.
her. And she's very, Kylie's very self-determined. She's running the show. There is no doubt about that. A lot of people don't think she is. They always think because of the old stock Aiken Waterman thing that she's been kind of moulded by people behind the scenes. She is very much driving the whole thing. And what you see that she does is what she wants you to see. And that's what it is. She's very much in control. I have a lot of respect for her too because of that.
Well, I think everyone does now.
Yeah.
I mean, she's stood the test of time.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Let's talk about your bands. Let's talk about you, Joe.
Which one?
Well, that was the $1 million question. Okay, let's talk about right at this moment.
Right. Okay. Right at this moment, I'm currently playing with the Black Sorrows. You know, I still tour with the Black Sorrows. We did in the last few months. I think in November we did 20 gigs. You know, December was about 10 or 15 or so. But it keeps rolling on. But in between all this, I have my own project called Into the Mystic, which is kind of going back to my roots, back in those days in Belfast, watching Van Morrison and them play.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought that, well, Van doesn't really come here, and I have a passion to sing. I love his music. And we kind of grew up with the same roots in a way. He was into all that kind of music I spoke about before, the Big Bill Brunsey and the Johnny Hooker and the jazz thing. So I sort of feel like I have an insight into his music.
So this is the Van Morrison show is your latest project.
That's it, yes.
Your albums, I have Holy Well,
yeah.
which is a brilliant album.
Thank you. Still sells, believe it or
No,
not.
I was going to say it's really worth a listen. It's fabulous. Your second or
Falling Again.
Falling Again.
And I think you sing on that one. You do.
Well, I better have a listen to it.
You and Penny came in and did some some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and do go and see. What's it called?
Into the Mystic.
Into the Mystic. Joe Creighton. Thank you very much, Lane.
You're welcome. Thank you.
See you soon.
Colors of the dream are turning to glory, gaping at the seams and reaching for glory. How much water will the story hold? Flooded with ideas, holding out for gold.